Skin, Your Largest Organ webinar series. So we're going to take a little bit of time to review last week and then move on forward. We're going to do kind of a brief review. So as you know, I'm Dr. Peggy Parker. I am a naturopathic and European biological medicine physician. And the thing I really love to share with you about that education is that in my biological medicine courses, I found out that if you could reduce the oxidation on the cell membrane and create a slight shift of the pH in blood, urine, and saliva and get more minerals into the cells, our body could heal itself of anything. And of course, that means anything, whether you have a predisposition or you've had some kind of accident or injury and you have contracted some kind of long-term autoimmune disease or whatever it is, your body can heal itself to the fullest extent possible because our bodies are magical healing machines. That's how they're designed. And in this particular course, we're talking specifically about the skin because it is our largest organ and it is connected to all kinds of systems in our bodies. So I want you to remember that cells, everything starts with cells, and the cells form tissues, and tissues form organs, and organs form systems, and systems form organisms like our human bodies. And tissue is made from a group of cells. These are skin cells, and this is skin tissue. But not all organs are internal. So your skin is your largest organ, and it contains about 2 trillion cells. It weighs about 8 pounds, and there are about 22 square feet of it covering your body. And without it, we would quite literally evaporate. And skin has a multitude of functions, including waterproofing, insulating, protecting, manufacturing vitamin D, and interacting with other organs and systems. And while we went through a lot of these, particularly waterproofing last week, we're going to really talk about the insulating and protection mechanisms of your skin and how that affects a lot of things in your body. So your skin is made of 3 layers: the epidermis, the dermis, and the subcutaneous or hydrodermis. And it takes about 5 weeks from the bottom layer of the epidermis, your top layer of skin, to rise to the top layer for sloughing off. And you lose an average of about 40,000 skin cells per hour. That's a lot, isn't it? So we're going to talk about some insulating mechanisms. So here is a cross-section of skin that shows a few things that we're going to be talking about tonight. We're talking, so you can see if you look over on the left, it says epidermis, dermis, and subcutaneous tissue. But I want you to look particularly at some of these other things that seem to have gotten cut off on this. Well, you look at the blood vessels, which are the red and blue part, and then the things with the squiggly circular things that look almost like brains, those are actually sweat glands. And then the yellow things that come from the very bottom and rise all the way to the top, those are actually part of your nervous system. So let's talk about insulating. So thermal insulation, thermal regulation, so keeping your body temperature regulated, starts and it primarily has something to do with your sweat glands and blood vessels, which are both in the dermis. So what happens is that as increased evaporation of sweat happens, it decreases your body temperature, because you know what it's like, you get hot and sweaty and the breeze comes along, you turn a fan on, and all of a sudden you feel, wow, I feel so much better. Well, that happens during vasodilation. So vasodilation is the relaxing of the small blood vessels in the dermis, and it makes it much easier for the body to release some heat, and that will help lower some of the body's internal temperature. But when it's really cold outside, we use vasoconstriction, which means that those blood vessels are constricted, and it helps retain the internal body temperature. And then the fatty subcutaneous layer of the skin acts like an insulation barrier and helps us to prevent the loss of heat. And as the body, as a protection to the body to decrease the effects of cold temperatures. And if you live in a cold climate like I do, and lots of us in Washington and other places do, we really depend on that vasoconstriction. But those of you who live more in the southern regions, you are using more vasodilation for more of the year than we do up here. So I want to talk a little bit more about protection. So sensation is an important function of the skin, and the dermis is the place where all kinds of sensations are detected. And so we're talking about things like heat and cold and pressure and contact and pain. And sensation is directed through nerve endings in the dermis, which are easily affected by wounds. So you notice that if you have scar tissue, it doesn't have the same sensations as regular tissue, because anytime we've had a wound and it develops scar tissue, the dendrites aren't as active. So dendrites are kind of interesting in that they're part of the nervous system that starts down low. So I'm going to back up here to this picture. Starts way down here at the bottom of the picture, and then they kind of they weave themselves all the way through all of the subcutaneous, the dermis, and the epidermis, and eventually get right up to the skin surface. So dendrites are responsible for helping protect us from things like, you know how when you just about touch something too hot and you feel it and you jerk your hand back. That's because the dendrites are sensing that we need some protection and sending signals through the nervous system to our brain to cause us to have that reflex. When we feel too much pressure and I don't know if you've ever started to step on something, you stepped on it just enough for it to hurt and you jerk your foot back just in time for you not to get a puncture from some child's toy or a stick or something that you would have stepped on and caused yourself a wound. So these are really important sensations that are protected by dendrites. Now, it'll protect us also from getting things like burns, and it works for both first and second degree burns. But by the time you pass second degree, we've actually killed the dendrites. So when you get to a third degree burn, you don't even feel it anymore because you've lost the sensation. So that's a much more severe injury. Now, let's go on and talk about some other layers of protection. This is a phagocyte. So phagocytes actually live just on the surface and below the surface of the skin. And phagocytes are part of our immune system. And as a part of our immune system, they gobble up all kinds of things. They gobble up dead cells. They gobble up invaders, microbial invaders. Like here is a yeast cell that it's surrounding, and it's going to just take it into its inner being and engulf it, take it back to a lymphatic vessel, and it gets destroyed. So phagocytes are part of our immune system. They're part of our lymphatic system. So it's kind of an interesting thing. So remember that I told you last week that one of the ways that our body protects us from a skin from microbial invaders is that we have a thin layer of what is essentially urine on our skin at all times. And phagocytes live just below that little layer of protection. They are one of our enhanced immune protectors. And then we're going to talk about this. So melanocytes are really important because they live right at this dark purple line. So you see the epidermis at the top, and right at the bottom of the epidermis are melanocytes. And melanocytes come in a few different color shades that help determine the color of your skin. So whether you have a warmer or a cooler tone to your skin, it'll be dependent on how many red, yellow, let's see, what are the others? Brown and red, yellow, brown. There's one more, but I can't think of what it is. How many of those are present? And so melanocytes do a few things. They protect us from sunburns. They also are responsible for producing vitamin D from sunshine. So vitamin D is actually a protection for all kinds of mechanisms and systems in our body. So it's a really important system, really important little piece of our skin. Now, the problem is when we tend to sunburn, it not only sets us up for more skin cancer, but it also damages some of the melanocytes, and it takes them weeks and weeks to regenerate and be able to produce enough melanin to protect you. And so I have a few spots on my body since I am a redhead, and I have been sunburned a lot of times by accident, especially when I was younger. I have some spots on my shoulders that don't have any melanin. They have no more melanocytes in spots that are like between a dime and a quarter size all over my shoulders and my back. Because I've burned that skin so many times that I completely destroyed the melanocytes in those particular areas. So this is one of the reasons we have to be really careful and be more protective of our bodies. So now when I garden, I wear a hat that's, just a giant hat that I actually got at the San Diego Zoo years ago. And I wish I had another one because it's starting to wear out. Every time I go to the garden and have it on, I feel so protected, but also in a very fashionable way. It's quite a hat that draws a lot of positive attention. Anyway, these melanocytes are a protection both for your skin to keep it from burning and to your whole body, because vitamin D helps us be able to absorb calcium. So without enough vitamin D, we have problems with things like our bones, our nails, our hair, and our skin. All of these tissues require a fair amount of calcium in order to function properly. And without vitamin D, we cannot produce enough, we can't absorb enough calcium to be healthy. So this is part of the problem with sun blockers. So sunscreen can be helpful in keeping you from burning, but it also keeps you from producing enough vitamin D. I noticed a few years ago that almost all doctors that I knew were prescribing that people take vitamin D, even in sunny areas. And my daughter, who lives in Texas, is one of them. Her doctor had her on pretty high doses of vitamin D. And I started talking to her about it, and I realized that because it's hot in Texas and she does not really like the heat, that she wasn't spending much time outside in the sun. And when she did, she had sunscreen on. And it was producing a problem for her in that her ligaments were beginning to get really lax. And she had a lot of problems with spraining her ankles and joint pain and all kinds of things that were going on. And I think it was due in part to the fact that she's not producing enough of her own vitamin D. Now, you can take vitamins like vitamin D, and it is really helpful, but it is not as easy for your body to use as when your body's producing it itself. Because now we're taking it internally. It has to go through digestion. It has to go through absorption in the small intestine. There's all kinds of steps before it gets to the places that it needs to go. But when you're producing vitamin D through melanocytes, it's already internal. It doesn't go through digestion. It doesn't go through filtering. It's taken to where it needs to be in the body without much fanfare. It's just used by your body. And that is a much easier delivery system. So it is really important for us to set up protections for our skin. One of the things that you want to think about in terms of protecting your skin is what you put on your skin, because transdermal delivery is a very well-known fact. In fact, I'm using some things right now that are medications that you put on your skin rather than in your mouth and swallow it. Because if you put it on an area where it's close to blood vessels, it is absorbed through the skin and directly into your bloodstream without ever having to go through digestion. So I want you to think that about every single thing you put on your skin is absorbed into your body and has to be processed through the bloodstream into your liver. It's processed in the liver and your kidneys. And so you want to really pay attention to what you're putting on your skin so that you're not overburdening your liver and your kidneys. So it's real important to check things like your ingredients in your shampoo, ingredients in your lotion, ingredients in your soaps, because soap is a very, very alkaline substance and it will really dry out your skin. So I rarely recommend that anybody uses a bar soap. Liquid soaps generally don't have lye in them, and that's what creates a hard soap is lye. And lye is extremely alkaline and can cause a lot of itching and flaking and dry skin. The more dry your skin is, the more tiny cracks and fissures it has in it. And when that happens, we have a whole lot of those phagocytes that we talked about back here needed to protect your body from the microbial invaders. And we can actually kind of run short on these phagocytes, which are part of our immune system, and start overburdening our immune system. This is one of the ways, just one, but it's one of the factors in creating autoimmune diseases, particularly autoimmune diseases that have something to do with the skin. So paying strict attention to what you've got in your skincare regimen is really important, because we want to protect these phagocytes so that they can protect us from more important things. So keeping your skin moisturized, and that's really easy for those of you who use 5.5 water or beauty water. Just a really, really, really fine mist all over your body after a shower can really go a long way to rebalancing the pH of your skin and allowing the skin to regenerate in a really healthy way and to stop some of this super dry skin that causes these little cracks and fissures in your skin. Let's see, I am missing a slide here. Let's go back here and talk about this for a minute. So nerve endings in your skin are really quite important, because they send your nervous system, which sends your brain, which sends that to all different portions of your brain. It sends all kinds of signals from the world. Now, I want to talk to you about some things that get started through touch or pressure, that kind of thing, and pain, and how that can relate to all kinds of diseases that don't have anything to do with the skin, but nonetheless really caused initially by touch. So I discovered something pretty interesting when I was first in practice. And I seem to attract lots and lots of people, particularly women, that had fibromyalgia. And because I'm sort of a medical intuitive, especially when I'm doing a Reiki treatment on someone or I'm touching them, sometimes I get a lot of interesting messages about what's going on with them. And I had several women, I think about 8 of them, that were coming very regularly for help. And in each of their cases, each of these women had fibromyalgia, and sometimes multiple chemical sensitivity on top of their fibromyalgia. And after a few months of working with them and gaining more of their trust and doing more treatments and trying all kinds of things and doing a lot of testing, I realized that each one of them had been assaulted, generally sexually assaulted. And so it became unsafe to be touched. And so fibromyalgia, when a person has fibromyalgia, they have so many places on their body that hurt to be touched. So it's all these dendrites. This whole nervous system has become on high alert all the time. And so it just hurts to be touched. So this is the way their body developed protection to save them from inappropriate touching. So even when they're with the people that they love, it still hurts to be touched. And so without healing that aspect, these dendrites stay on high alert all the time. Now, remember I told you about that book, The Molecules of Emotion? Well, every skin cell has those molecules of emotion attached as well. So by drinking this water, by allowing our cells to begin to, the cell membranes to begin to soften, by allowing that thick, sticky phospholipid bilayer to become semi-permeable again, to allow plenty of water in, plenty of oxygen in, and the carbon dioxide out. Now we have this healthy cell. Well, what happens, I'm going to skip forward here. Sorry. Come on, you. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. I'm so sorry. Nothing like changing our, okay, so here we are. So once we have changed that cell membrane, and now these pumps and these receptor sites and these embedded proteins begin to function well again, now not only are we taking in the minerals that we need, not only are we taking in the hormones that we need, not only are we taking in the enzymes that we need to rebuild and restructure our tissues, every cell is now able to release inappropriate toxins, including toxic memories, toxic thoughts, toxic actions that are driven by these trapped emotions. This is so important, and it really does begin in many cases with the skin. In your skin, you're going to have so many things that have happened to you, have happened by inappropriate touch. It's happened by being damaged, like wounds and cuts and car accidents where you've had something really hurt. A lot of things begin with the skin, because our skin is the thing we interact to the rest of the world. That's our organ that directly interacts with the whole rest of the world. So if you have problem skin, you have acne, or some people sent me a lot of things that we're actually going to talk about next week, like Garrier's disease and atopic dermatitis and alopecia, some of those kinds of things that have to do with the skin. Once you start having some of those diseases of the skin, it begins to be even more difficult for you to react well to your environment, because sometimes the environment hurts you because it's too, it hurts to have sunshine on it, or it hurts to have wind on it, or it hurts if it's cold. But a lot of times it hurts us emotionally to interact with other people, because we think that all they can see is our skin. So taking care of your skin is super important. And we do that from the inside and the outside. We do that by drinking the water to change the cells. We do that by misting our skin with beauty water. And we do it by using the water protocol to enhance our digestion, and then to fill our body with really high quality fruits and vegetables and other choices in our diet. The healthier our choices in our diet, the healthier our skin. Now, you cannot skip fats if you want to have healthy skin. You cannot skip fats. Fats are really important to producing really high quality cells and hydrated skin. If your skin has a lot of cracking and you're dry all the time, it's not just dehydration. It's about half dehydration and about half inadequate amounts of fats in your diet. So the great sources of fats in your diet that will really help your skin are things like coconut oil and avocados. I'm trying to think. MCT oil is wonderful because not only does it help brain function, which is connected to the skin, and the skin connected to brain function via the nervous system, you can really make some real improvements in your cell membranes with MCT oil. So anyway, I'm sorry, I did not actually plan on talking about this tonight, but it just came to me that it was really important and that I should be talking to you about this tonight. So we did. So that's kind of why we're kind of out of order here. So now we'll go back a little bit. Sorry. I would have talked about, I would have included those slides in a different place rather than having to skip back and forth. So next week, we're actually going to be talking about more of the diseases and problem issues of the skin. From many of most of the questions that people sent me had something to do with a disease or a problem issue of the skin. So that's what we're going to tackle in class 3 next week. And we're going to talk about things like Darier's disease and skin tags, and atopic dermatitis and seborrheic dermatitis and alopecia and psoriasis and eczema and acne. And we will touch a little bit on skin cancer. And of course, dry, oily, or flaky skin is a problem for a lot of us. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I feel like we just sort of tackled that one right now. Now remember that when cells multiply to make new daughter cells, they're identical to the original cell. So when your skin has an issue, you have to address it in order to stop the cycle of oxidation and make your skin healthier again. So remember that the number one problem with most skin issues begins with oxidation, because as those cells are bombarded by 10,000 free radicals every day, it creates that change in this phospholipid bilayer and creates this sort of situation where we're repelling some oxygen, repelling some water, and trapping carbon dioxide. And not only can it change our skin, but it can change the DNA in our skin. This is one of the ways that people begin to develop real skin problems that people say they're genetic, but when they start doing genetic testing, they can't find the markers in their family history to support the fact that it was a genetic thing. And then sometimes things do have a genetic overtone, but it doesn't mean the DNA is disturbed. It just means your body contains some of those genes. So by allowing our skin to become more and more damaged and more dry and less hydrated and less fed and overworked, we then can create real problems by changing the DNA. And when we change the DNA, we have a real problem. Remember that in your skin, that picture of the phagocyte, it's one of the ways that our bodies react and use free radicals. So phagocytes are actually using free radicals to destroy these microbial invaders. But remember that for every molecule of energy or ATP that's produced, we produce 2 terrible free radicals. And so it is very important that we begin to look at how we can change this downward spiral of oxidation to dehydration to inflammation by reversing it. And we reverse it with a perfect antioxidant. And your water contains a perfect antioxidant because the antioxidants in water come from splitting H2O into H2 and O, right? So remember that water plus electricity creates ions, atoms, and molecules. Here we have water that's split and into OH negative and H positive, which would be responsible for the pH of the water. But when we have O and H2, this is where the magic really happens in terms of making dramatic changes in our bodies. Because the ions that created the alkalinity and acidity are important, but H2 creates the antioxidants. So H2 on its own acts as an antioxidant. And then in the presence of platinum, H2 gives up its electrons and produces a lot of free electrons. And these free electrons are able to mitigate free radicals with no downsides. Because remember, traditional antioxidants have some limitations. They're tissue-specific, vitamin A, vitamin E, and vitamin C. In terms of skin, vitamin C is really important and does help protect and support the connective tissue in our body, which is part of that is skin. So we want to remember that H2 is the key. The production of H2 from your machine is always going to be limited by the water that you're using. If you're not using pre-filters and you're not using cleaner water with less calcium in it, you are always going to be producing less hydrogen gas. The more hydrogen gas we produce, the more free electrons we produce. These two things together, the free electrons and the hydrogen gas, are responsible for producing virtually perfect antioxidants that can reverse anything. So as you go through the protocols in this book, you'll notice that many of them, all of them, ask for specific pHs of water. Now remember that depending on what you're trying to do, whether you're trying to rehydrate, you're trying to kill bacteria, you're trying to remove like sebum or oil from your skin, you'll need a different pH because different pHs have different characteristics. So for instance, if you were cleaning your skin, and we'll talk more about this next week when we're talking about skin problems, but let's just pretend that we're talking about acne right now. And you have really oily, the kind of acne that's very, very oily. In order to emulsify that oil, you are going to need to first use strong alkaline water because it's a surfactant, right? And it also emulsifies. So when you use that strong pH, you're removing the excess oil. but you're also going to upset your skin pH dramatically. So then you go in and you dab 2.5 water on any blemishes, because that's going to kill the bacteria. It's going to give those phagocytes a rest. It's going to give them a boost. It's going to help them do their job better because you've reduced a lot of the bacteria. Now, once you've reduced the bacteria and that water has dried, now you're going to go in and cleanse your skin and hydrate your skin using beauty water. Now what you've done afterwards, spritzing it on, and I don't care if you put a tiny drop of your favorite essential oil in there, particularly lavender or mint or tea tree. One of those kinds of things is very, very, very good for your skin. Rosemary. Spritz that on, and now you have hydrated your skin. Now, it doesn't matter. Maybe you have a wound somewhere in your body, or eczema or psoriasis. And so the same protocol exists for those, because when you have eczema or psoriasis, oftentimes a little crusty skin will appear, and you have to use that strong alkaline water to dissolve it and to get that out of the way so that you can do proper wound care. But all of the instructions for these kinds of things are in this book. I highly recommend that you have this book so that you don't forget any steps, because I've had so many people who skipped steps and then they tried to claim that the water didn't work for A, B, C, or D. Well, it was because they weren't following protocols. And so they're trying to put acid water in their eyes, which can cause cataracts and problems with macular degeneration and all kinds of things like that. They're putting acid water on their teeth and never rinsing it off, and the enamel's getting eroded. They're using alkaline water to wash their face, but they're never rebalancing it with either with beauty water, and so they get super dry skin. These things, they're easy mistakes, and quite frankly, the only reason I didn't make more mistakes is just because of my medical training. My biological medicine training was very specific about so many things that it helped me know which pH water I should use. Then as I studied more about water and found out that ionized water has a lot more going for it than just pH. The pH is kind of a side topic, not the main topic. When I realized what it can do to kill bacteria, what it can do to change cells, what it can do to change the way our digestion works, how it can change how our skin looks and feels and reacts. When you find out these things, then you know that the antioxidants, the oxidation and the antioxidation waters make a huge impact in your life, in your body, in your organs, on your skin. It's so important because we need to reduce this oxidative stress that happens as free radicals do more and more damage, because the more damage that free radicals do to cell membranes, the more of the damaged cell membranes we just keep having. And so when a cell becomes damaged due to free radicals, it not only it actually produces more free radicals inside the cell. So those concentrated acid wastes inside the cell increase the amount of inflammation, which increases the number of free radicals that are produced, which creates more oxidative stress and leads to more inflammation, which leads to more oxidative stress and more inflammation. So this downward spiral has got to get stopped. And if it doesn't get stopped, we develop serious problems. And so we do that by starting at the bottom and giving our body more antioxidants. We just flood the body with antioxidants. And when we do that, we restore hydrogen. When we do that, we restore the proper pH in the cell. When we do that, oxygen levels are increased. When we do that, energy is produced by the cells. When we do that, cells become more high functioning, and then tissues are revitalized. And we know that healthy tissues create a healthy body. And we start with the healthy tissues of our skin. Our skin is how we react to the world. It is a big organ that has a lot of functions, that protects us, that produces vitamin D, that interacts with our endocrine system, with our nervous system, with our blood vessels, with our lymphatic system, our immune system. It really, our skin really connects to almost every organ and glandular system that we have. And it is so overlooked in terms of how we feed it, how we protect it, how we care for it, and in turn, how it reacts back to us. So I really want to encourage you to think about your skin as your interface to the world and how your skin interfaces from the world back to you this week. So that's your homework assignment, which I forgot to write out. I have it just in a note beside me. But your homework assignment for this week is to think about 5 ways that your skin interacts with the world and 5 ways that it interacts back to you. I think you're going to be really kind of almost overwhelmed with information when you start thinking about it that way. It is really quite an amazing system, and I love sharing this information because I know that the more educated you get and the more ways you learn to share this water, the more ways that we together can impact the health of people all around the world, one glass of water at a time. So we have some time for some questions and answers. It looks like we have at least one. Oh, can I recommend an MCT oil? You know, I have used several different kinds and I have not noticed a dramatic difference in any of them. I just always look for something that's organic, and I prefer that it's in a glass bottle instead of a plastic one, but most of them are in plastic. When I get them home, I at least change them from a plastic bottle into a glass one. So hopefully it hasn't been interacting with the plastic for too long. Anyone else have a question? Thanks for that one, Colette. If you've never tried bulletproof coffee or bulletproof tea, you should truly give it a whirl. When I first heard about it, people were using butter, and then it kind of changed to using MCT oil. I thought it was going to taste so gross. Like, who wants to put oil or butter in their coffee? It sounded disgusting to me. And then I did a little experimentation because my daughter Allison she used to travel with me when I was in teaching classes for Enagic. She used to travel with me sometimes. So there's a lot of people who actually met her through the years. She's quite a spitfire. Anyway, I love her. Last year, she was here in Washington, but over in Seattle, helping out one of her friends over the holidays. And so she said, oh, Michelle and I tried bulletproof coffee, and Mom, you've got to try it. It's so delicious. It's like having a latte, only it's super healthy. And I tried it, and I was shocked and amazed that it was actually delicious. Now, I grow my own stevia in the garden, and so rather than buying the stuff that's powdered, I put a leaf that I've dried or frozen in, or a part of the leaf in when I blend it up. And so it has, a little bit of sweetness, not much, but a tiny bit. I tell you, I love that. I just love it. And I like it made into chai tea just as well. So if you're a person who likes to take turmeric. So if you're, if you're on the Ukon train, drinking chai tea will actually help you absorb more of that turmeric because it has a lot of other cofactors. Because what you need to know is that in order to absorb it, you need to have cofactors that are found in ginger, cinnamon, black pepper, and cloves. Those are the main ones. Sometimes they add a few more in, but particularly ginger and black pepper are essential for absorption of the particular constituents in turmeric that cause us to have anti-inflammatory responses. So chai tea with turmeric is amazing in its results. And dosage for MCT oil depends on what you're using it for, what your goal is. But generally, about a tablespoon a day is the low end, and you can go up to 3 tablespoons a day. You can have more. I mean, it doesn't hurt you. And it's actually MCT oil and coconut oil are metabolized differently than the rest of fats. It doesn't require your liver's participation. So it kind of gives your liver a little break. Anyone else have a question? How are we doing on time here? Robin says that for some reason MCT oil makes her sick. Well, Robin, you might, well, can you tell me how you've used it? Because a lot of times people that are using a different fat, does coconut oil, just regular coconut oil, bother you? Nope. So you can't take MCT oil straight. It'll make anybody sick to their stomach. It's like swallowing castor oil or something. It'll make your stomach upset, and it's more about what happens as a almost like a gag reflex, but it kind of carries out through your whole system. So mix it in with something like bulletproof coffee, or try that, because all MCT oil is medium chain triglycerides that's made from coconut oil. So Katrina said, it's totally unrelated, but is it true that 1 glass of Kangen water equals 5 pounds of blueberries? There is no proof for that. I would never say something like that. Nobody knows exactly how many antioxidants there are in a glass of Kangen water. Particularly if it's been sitting around for any period of time, if it's been exposed to heat or motion or light, that stuff begins to disappear. So saying that it's like one of those games of telephone. It drives me a little crazy, because you can say, well, it has more antioxidant. The antioxidants in Kangen water are more readily available to the body, because remember that chart that slide we had so many times in our last series, where we talked about the fact that only about 25% of the antioxidants in the food you eat and the supplements you take are actually absorbed by the body. But that's not true of water. So even if Kangen water had less antioxidants than 5 pounds of blueberries, all of them would be more readily available to your body to use than those in the 5 pounds of blueberries. But anyway, thank you for asking that question, because I really love it when people quit saying silly things like that and quit passing it around so that more people will quit saying it, instead of passing it around so that more people do say it. Drives me crazy. And it's one of the things that keeps healthcare professionals from taking you seriously. because they know that there's no documentation to prove that. So until there's documentation that proves a statement, a big statement like that, I would avoid using them altogether, if that makes any sense. Anyone else have a quick question? Because we're almost out of time, but I was a little late, so I'm willing to stay on for just a minute. So Robin says, when I shine a flashlight through a glass of fresh Kangen, I can see extremely small, but what you're seeing is bubbles. Those bubbles might be oxygen and they might be hydrogen. So you don't know. The way to know how much hydrogen there is in your water is to use H2 blue test. So what happens is that you use water and a little reagent. So, have you ever used those drops that show how much chlorine is in your water? You drop it in there and the water changes color if there's chlorine. Well, that's a reagent. And so the H2 blue is a reagent that identifies hydrogen rather than chlorine. And so it makes the water turn blue. And the more hydrogen, if you don't have much hydrogen in there, you're not going to get much change. If you have a lot of hydrogen, you get a bigger change. Anyone else have a question? So I want you to think again about your skin and touch and all the messages that you get when you're touched in different ways, because being touched, you're getting slapped, is a much different sensation than if you're getting hugged or if someone's patting your skin or stroking your hand or holding your face in their hands. That's a whole different thing. So I want you to think about all the ways that you interact with your own skin. And so, sometimes when we think we're being nice to ourselves, like we're really scrubbing, when we're taking a shower, we're just scrubbing. I want you to think about what kind of message you're sending yourself if all you ever do is scrub really hard and not pat yourself, right? So I want you to think about all the ways that your skin takes care of you. So all the ways that you can give it lots of love and protection and care back, so that the emotions that are getting stored on those skin cells are all about loving intention and kindness and protection and care, rather than the things you might have experienced up to this point. So I'm going to wish you a very happy upcoming week, and I look forward to talking to you next week. We'll get kind of down to some of the nitty-gritty of what causes skin diseases and what they are and how we can treat them. So everybody have a wonderful week. Thank you so much.